That's what we have. The outer shell is 6 inches of poured concrete all the way around, and then a 21-inch air gap. It might actually have ended up being a little bit wider than 21 inches, honestly.
George the Tech.
Hey everybody, this is George the Tech, and this time on my YouTube channel here, I wanted to make sure you guys could get an idea of what it is that I'm doing with studios around the world. And I mean around the world because today I'm getting a unique opportunity to interview a client in Mexico, and he'll tell you a little bit more about where and what part of Mexico. And it's Jonathan Lockwood. How you doing today?
Hey, good, George. Thanks so much for having me on here. Yeah, we're down in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, which is in the high desert mountains of central Mexico in the state of Guanajuato. So we're at about 6,800 feet.
6,800 feet. That's a nice elevation, but no snow down there.
No snow.
Anyway, I wanted to interview you today because your studio is a unique project. I've done a bunch of studio designs, many of them remotely. This one is one of those where I have not been able to set foot there in person, but someday. But this one's very unique for a few reasons. So tell me a little bit about the design and why you decided to build it in the way that you did, at least the external structure starting there.
Well, to give you an idea, I don't know anything about this stuff, so that's why I relied upon you. I was relying on a multi-decade experienced architect here to build the home. So we built the home outside of the city, just a few miles. So we're out in the country right now. It's a new fraccionamiento, which is another way of saying subdivision. So it's not really that new, but they just opened up a bunch of lots. There's going to be a lot of construction here over the years, and I don't want it loud. So obviously I wanted to know the basics and how could we make it super, super quiet. And so we talked to you, and you told us some of the basics about air gaps and the different numbers on the different materials we could use to construct the outer shell and then the inner shell. And so it was one of the things that I remember. You actually went silent when we had the Skype conversation between you and I and Philip, the architect, because Philip said something about, well, could we leave a 21-inch air gap? And you just went silent. You said, yeah, that would be amazing.
Exactly.
Most people I know do not have the luxury of putting in anything like that. They have 3 or 4 inch air gaps, but that would be amazing. Philip's reason for wanting to do this is just that things change fast here in Mexico, electrical codes, all sorts of things. And so in this big gap, he wanted to make it big enough for a reasonably small size Mexican construction worker to get down in there and change things.
Yeah, so you had the luxury of having the amount of space and the affordable construction in that area to do something most voice actors never get to do, which is build an incredibly well-isolated space with a huge air gap so the construction crew could work around that space, right? It's like it's a crawl space around the entire studio, is that right?
Exactly. And it worked out very well for us. I mean, we took a look at the different. I can't remember what is the sound factor. What is that number? It's called the STC, exactly. And we built the rest of the house out of what's called AAC or autoclave aerated concrete, which is really good for many reasons. But when we looked at the actual STC between that and 6 inches of poured concrete, it looked like the poured concrete ultimately was going to be better. So that's what we have. The outer shell is 6 inches of poured concrete all the way around, and then a 21-inch air gap. It might actually have ended up being a little bit wider than 21 inches, honestly. And then we've got 2 layers, as you instructed us, of what they call down here tabla roca, which we know as drywall in the U.S., and the sandwich in between there is the green glue noise-proofing compound.
Quite an amazing amount of isolation. I know I had you send me some sound samples of the room tone, and you checked your room tone levels, and they're definitely hovering well below minus 60. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah. I think it's probably closer to minus 75.
So do you ever hear any noise from the outside inside there?
Well, welcome to my day today, George. See, this is, I've got 2,100 square meters here, which is a little over half an acre. And so we're involved in some other construction. We're building a garage and a workout room and an apartment above it, a little storage area. And right now, what they have to do, they're compacting the soil. At the moment, I'm not hearing it. It could just because the crew's taking their lunch. But they've got one of those compactor handheld jobs, and it's really not noise. Yeah, it's less noise and more just vibration. It's a seismic thing, and it's not terrible. But I didn't want anything like this happening, so I guess I can put up with it. I just have to deal with it today and tomorrow, and they'll be done. Apart from that, no, there is only one source of noise that happens in and around this studio that I can hear. It's not dogs outside. It's not trucks going by. I don't hear any of that. What it is my 2-year-old little granddaughter, who also happens to live here. And if there are many doors in this house, if there aren't 2 doors adjacent to my studio shut, I can hear that piercing little 2-year-old cry coming in here just barely. No client has ever heard it, but I hear it.
No one door is ever going to stop that sound. It always takes a double door, whether it's 2 doors from 6 inches from each other or 2 doors 10 feet from each other. That is the key to isolation, is at least 2 doors with 2 sets of seals.
And we do have 2 doors. We do have 2 doors. And then outside of those 2 doors is another door inside of a little airlock. And then, but it's that door and the door beyond it that must be closed. So yeah, she has a pretty loud shriek.
The ultimate test. So another thing that makes this studio space really cool is it's quite capacious. It's rather large. The interior of your studio booth is, what is it again? 20 by 20?
It's about 20 and a half. Yeah, everything's meters here, but in feet, it's 20 and a half by 16 and a half.
Yeah, it's a nice size space. So we treated... Did you end up treating the entire room or a part of the room?
Well, we have behind me here in this space. What I was lucky enough to find, and you told me, I'm just remembering this now. You take this guy up on it because I wanted to get that stuff. What do you call it? Is it ATS? Is the brand that you recommend? Yeah, and so I was going to send away for that. It was going to be very expensive getting that here to Mexico. And yes, and then of course they do have that kind of cool option, which is they'll sell you the materials and you can put it together yourself. That still was going to be expensive. And in the process of all of this, a year plus ago, maybe a year and a half ago, in my other home in that studio, my interface blew up, and I had to talk to. There's a guy who lives here named Bruce Brown, who was a former. He was a producer for AC/DC. He's an Aussie, great guy. And I went to him and he told me about these guys in Querétaro, which is a city about an hour away. And I found a German acoustic engineer geek named Konstantin, who this is what he does. He builds, acoustic panels all over the world. And, you were saying 2 inches, 4 inches. He says, no, must be 6 inches. So I'm surrounded by this 6-inch the mineral wool. And he made these custom panels, and they're gorgeous. And he calls them clouds, the panels that hang over a head into which the LED lights fit. And then I've got 4 gobos behind me, which it's not really. I turned off my studio lighting because I look like hell. But if I get back to doing podcasts, which is what I was doing for a while, I can reshape this so that we can invite guests in. But the point is, you asked me, on the other side of this is just my office, and that's minimally treated so that there's no really nasty slap on the other side. But it's in here that it's treated, and it sounds really great.
When we first connected, you didn't even have the microphone turned on. We were just using the iMac mic, and you were 3 feet away. And, I record and interview people weekly that often don't have a proper mic, and they sound usually very bad. But in your case, because the room around you is so well treated that even 2-3 feet away from your iMac, I was even at the moment thinking, do you have another microphone? I was fooled. I was surprised at how good it sounded. And it's so wonderful to have that space around you, that high ceiling, and the more space that's around you, the better the studio sounds. I mean, and this is proof positive of that. It really sounds remarkable. And then on the equipment side of things, you decided to go with the Apollo system. Is that right?
Right. That came very highly recommended to me by you and just about everyone else. I've had no trouble with it. In fact, now, I used to travel with one of those little, I can't remember the brand name of these little interfaces for my mobile studio, but now I just travel with it. I bought a case into which it fits. It's a little bit bigger than what I'm used to, but it's certainly small enough. And I don't have to change any settings or anything, so I really like it.
That's the way we like it to be. It should be as for voice acting, as set it and forget it as possible is what I usually say.
Right.
We want to keep the reliability, ease of use and the sound quality. That's the triangle, the three legs of the stool of voiceover recording, you know. So I'm so glad that's worked out well for you. Well, Jonathan, I know you've got a really busy schedule, and I just wanted to take this unique opportunity to chat with you about how the project worked out. And it's such a cool and unique construction space, and I hope someday to have a reason to come down there and see it with my own eyes. It would be a lot of fun.
Well, Google San Miguel de Allende, and you'll find that most of the travel magazines call it the #1 city in the world, the #1 travel destination. And many, if not most, Americans and Canadians have never heard of it, but more and more are finding it, to the chagrin of many of us gringos down here who'd like to keep it a best-kept secret, you know.
All 28 million of my followers now know about it. Ha ha.
Great.
I don't have that many. Anyway, Jonathan, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for sharing a little bit about your studio and your time. And it's a real blast. It's been a treat. It was a real treat working with you and getting to work with your architect as well.
Yeah. Thanks so much, George.